Okay, so we all think we know the story. April 30th, 1945. Deep in a bunker underneath a burning Berlin, Adolf Hitler takes his own life. It's supposed to be the final, definitive end to World War II in Europe. It's the story we've all been told a million times, but what if it's not the whole truth? What if history's biggest monster just slipped away? Because when you really start to look closely and pull on the threads of that official story, the whole thing starts to unravel in a pretty shocking way. A lot of what we've been told is fact is actually filled with fiction and a mind-boggling amount of doubt. So let's pull on that first thread, shall we?
Now, the textbook version is super simple and neat. The Red Army is just a few streets away, Hitler marries his longtime partner Eva Braun, and then, the very next day, they both commit suicide. His followers then take the bodies outside, burn them, and boom, end of story. Except, this is exactly where the real mystery begins.
See, the Soviets are the ones who took the bunker, and they claim to have all the evidence. For more than 60 years, they held up this piece of a skull with a very convenient bullet hole in it as the one piece of solid forensic proof that Hitler shot himself. This thing was the cornerstone of the entire official story.
But then something amazing happened. In 2009, scientists were finally allowed to run modern DNA tests on this absolutely crucial piece of evidence. And what they found? Well, it blew the whole story wide open.
That's right. The single most important piece of physical proof of Hitler's death, the evidence held up for over half a century, wasn't his. It actually belonged to a completely unidentified woman. The literal cornerstone of the official narrative was a total fake.
And here's where it gets really wild. That fake skull, it's just the tip of the iceberg. It's the first crack in a story that is basically a giant evidence black hole. You start looking for concrete proof, and you find nothing.
Just think about it like a modern investigation, right? There was zero independent autopsy. Not a single American or British official ever even saw a body. The Soviets, who controlled the whole scene, kept changing their story. And the key witnesses? Oh, they were held by the Soviets for years and interrogated before anyone from the West ever got a chance to talk to them. It's an investigator's nightmare.
And this uncertainty went all the way to the top. I mean, this isn't some conspiracy nut. This is Marshal Zhukov, the Soviet commander who actually conquered Berlin. Just weeks after taking the city, he was publicly saying that they hadn't found Hitler and that, yeah, he might have just flown out.
And even the very few people who claimed they saw the body, they couldn't get their stories straight on the most basic details. Was the bullet wound in his temple, or was it through the mouth? Did he die from just a gunshot, or was it a gunshot and cyanide? I mean, for one of the most important moments in history, the details are a complete and utter mess.
So you're probably wondering, what happened to the body the Soviets claimed they had? Well, it's a super bizarre story. First, they buried it in secret. Then they dug it up and reburied it several times. Then in 1970, the head of the KGB ordered them to dig it up one last time, burn it completely to ash, and just scatter the ashes in a river. Now, their official reason was to stop the grave from becoming some neo-Nazi shrine, but it also just so happened to permanently destroy any and all physical evidence, forever. How convenient.
So, okay, there's a serious lack of evidence for his death, but that brings up an even bigger question. Could he have even escaped? Was that even possible? Well, the answer is a deeply uncomfortable yes, because there was basically a superhighway for Nazis already built and waiting. They were called the Rad Lines, and these were not a myth. They were real, incredibly well-funded, and highly organized escape routes that smuggled thousands of wanted Nazis right out of Europe. They had everything: money, fake passports, safe houses, and most of those routes led to one place: South America.
And believe me, this system worked. It worked for the worst of the worst. Adolf Eichmann, the architect of the Holocaust, yep, he got to Argentina. Josef Mengele, the horrific angel of death from Auschwitz, he escaped to South America. Klaus Barbie, the butcher of Lyon, he got away to Bolivia. These monsters, some of the most hunted men on the planet, used these rat lines to escape and live free for decades. So if the system was good enough to hide them, why not their boss? And then you've got this U-boat mystery. The war is over. Germany has surrendered. All submarines were ordered to give up. But then, months later, 2 German U-boats just show up out of the blue in Argentina. Their captains swore they didn't have any important passengers, but the timing, the destination, it's been fueling theories for over 75 years.
Now, here's what makes this all so compelling. This idea of Hitler escaping wasn't just some fringe conspiracy theory. The world's most powerful intelligence agencies were taking it very, very seriously. And we know this because we can now read their own declassified files. This is a direct quote from a declassified FBI memo dated just 5 months after he supposedly died. The FBI was documenting what it believed were credible reports that Hitler was alive and well in Argentina. This isn't some random person's letter. This is an official internal FBI file.
And check this one out. Joseph Stalin, the leader of the Soviet Union, the guy whose army took Berlin. He's privately telling American leaders at a major conference that he doesn't buy it. He thinks Hitler got away. The man who conquered Berlin didn't even believe the official story his own side was pushing.
And it wasn't just them. America's own spy agency at the time, the OSS, which later became the CIA, did its own investigation and officially concluded that the evidence for Hitler's death was, and this is a direct quote, not definitive. So you have the FBI, Stalin, and the CIA's predecessor all officially documenting their doubts.
So, where does that leave us with all this? Honestly, when you stack it all up, it stops feeling like a closed chapter of history and starts to feel a lot more like history's greatest and most chilling cold case.
You really have two completely competing stories here. On one side, you've got the official version, which is built on those shaky witness accounts and is, to be fair, what most historians believe. But on the other side, you've got this huge pile of unanswered questions. The skull that belonged to a woman, no body to actually test, secret FBI files, and a proven working escape network for top Nazis.
And let's be super clear. The overwhelming majority of historians today believe Hitler died in that bunker. They argue that even with all the flaws, the testimony from the people who were there is the most likely scenario. And that is the accepted view.
But that consensus just can't explain away the hard documented facts. It doesn't explain the skull. It doesn't explain the FBI files. It doesn't explain why Stalin himself was telling world leaders he thought Hitler got away. These aren't just theories. These are real, verifiable problems in the historical record that have never been solved.
So here's the takeaway. The official story is probably what happened. But the doubt, that's documented fact. The physical evidence is either gone or has been proven to be a lie. So while the history books might say the case is closed, the actual evidence file seems to be wide open. And it leaves you with a really chilling thought, doesn't it? If the story of one of the most important events in modern history is this flawed, what else do we think we know for sure that just isn't true?